Hi.
Hey.
Hey, we're back. We're doing the thing again.
There's only one way to start this episode.
Tell me.
That's with zooming in on your hat. Bass backwards.
Bass backwards. Welcome to Full Shift, where shift is bass backwards. I was thinking about this morning that I think each episode I should just have a different hat. I should never wear the same hat twice on this show.
That won't be hard.
I could do it for fucking years.
We could do it for years.
Truly.
You and the hats, I mean. And now Kilmer's hats.
Yep.
Suddenly my girl, she doesn't even wear hats.
But I got a bunch.
She has at least 32.
No, oh yeah, actually, if you count
Remember
those.
all those other hats you bought?
Yeah.
No, she does. And she will maybe
and all
wear
those
them
beanies that I bought too.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back to Full Shift. My name is Nico Tortorella.
And I'm Bethany C. Meyers.
Nico and Bethany are full of shift.
Full of shift.
Yeah. Today's episode is brought to you by
This is us.
This Is Us.
Oh, I think you were going a different
I
route.
was, but
Okay.
I appreciate that, whatever that was. I'm into it.
Well, that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, we're going to talk about us. We've talked a lot. I mean, that's all we've talked about so far is us. But I think it's...
We are going to have some other people coming on.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to branch out. But
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of questions and things and laying the foundation.
We're setting a foundation, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're going to give y'all some of our origin story. We're going to tell y'all how we met, the versions of relationships that we've had over the years with each other, with other people, and how we've landed on this version of our modern family, so to speak. But before we get into all of that, before we do all of that,
Yes.
we're going to play a game. Okay.
First?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to do it first and we're going to do it last. And I think we'll see how they change after we've had this conversation. Okay.
Ooh.
The game we are going to play is called Say the Same Thing.
Okay.
Where
is this the snap 2, 3, 4?
Yeah. So I'm going to snap 4 times.
Okay.
On the 4th time, we say a word, any word, and we continue. The goal is to say the same thing. So we find out what the common denominator is in the 2 things.
Okay.
Okay. Ready?
Okay.
Flower.
Oh!
Nuts. What the fuck? All right, y'all. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. We'll see you next time. That was amazing. We are still going to do it at the end. But
we did try playing this morning, and let me tell you, it was bass backwards.
It did not go like that at all. That was fucking awesome.
I love you.
Okay, how do you get that to happen in your relationship?
We don't know.
We don't know. No, but let's talk about how we first met, babe. You want to jump into it?
Well, let's see.
The year was 2006.
2006 we met.
That was back when we used to have to walk to school in the snow with barefoot.
Almost. We're almost at the anniversary. We met somewhere. I moved to Chicago on August 22nd because it was my 2006, because it was my best friend from high school's birthday. And then we met within the first week. So I want to say we met around August 25th-ish would be our Annie. And today is July, 20-something? What's
25th.
today? Today's July 25th.
Yeah.
So we're approaching year
19.
18.
19.
24 minus 6.
Oh, yeah, 8. Yep. Yeah, 18. This is our 18th
it has to
year.
Be an even number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
18th year.
So I grew up in the northern suburbs of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on the North Shore. And I decided I was going to go to college in the city. I moved out of my parents' house, right? And I moved into a building in the South Loop in Chicago. It's called 2 East 8th. We went to the glorious Columbia College in Chicago.
You're 2.5 years younger than me.
2.5 years younger. So I had just moved.
So you were a freshman.
I was a freshman. I literally just moved out of my parents' house. And it was my first time living alone in the city. Somehow I finagled a situation in the dorms to be living alone. Basically, my best friend was going to go to Columbia, and last minute he decided he was going to go to IU, but we were supposed to live together, and somehow they didn't like figure out he wasn't going to school there anymore. So I had an apartment to myself in this apartment building for the first like month. And I got that apartment all fucking set up.
I was going to Chicago from, I want to say St. Louis, but definitely not St. Louis. I'm from Festus, Missouri. It's a small town south of St. Louis, more Jefferson County, a little more redneck and
The
proud,
Sticks.
honey.
My baby's
A
from
little
the
more
Sticks.
Sticks. I don't feel like Festus is the Sticks anymore. I feel like now it's like really up and coming. They have Starbucks and everything.
They got Starbucks in Festus.
They do have a Starbucks. I know.
Yeah.
But I had gone to a state school in Missouri. I went there. I rushed a sorority. I did the thing. I met this girl. Later realized very in love with her. But met this girl as best friends, and we were like, let's go to California and become movie stars and like live this wild dream. And I went home for Christmas break to my mom and I was like, I'm moving to California. Here's the plan. And she was like, hell no, you're not. And she said, you can come home and go to community college for free for 2 years. And then you can go to California. And I was like, okay. And I didn't go back to the school. I mean, I moved all my stuff out. I went to community college for 2 years.
You moved back home?
I moved into the house that was like, it was kind of cool. My grandparents built a house that my mom and dad bought from them that I was raised in until like my brothers all grew up there. I was there until I was like 8 or 9. And then basically when any kid turned 18, they could go live in that house. And it was like the house we could live in.
Spruce.
In Spruce Drive.
Yeah.
So me and the brother closest in age to me lived there together. For a little bit, I lived there by myself. It was just like the house, you know? Good times in that house.
Good times in that house.
Good times in that house. Yeah. It was a fun house. The doors were never locked. So people, like, you would just come home and people would be there watching the Cardinals game, you know?
And you had a boyfriend when you moved to Chicago.
I did. I like had my first real boyfriend. Like I like did it a little bit in high school, but that wasn't my thing. And I had a boyfriend.
A very serious boyfriend.
A very serious.
Very serious. Bethany made it very clear from day one that she had a very serious boyfriend.
My recollection of this is different, but okay. You're always like, I met you and you said that you were going to get married to this person.
You said, literally, like within the first 5 minutes of us having our first conversation, you said, I could never imagine myself with anybody else.
Things change.
You better fucking believe they do.
All right, so here's
we went
what
to a party. We were at a party.
First week of school at Columbia.
Yeah.
So I graduated, I finished community college. I was like, okay, I'm going to California. My mom was like, no, you can go to Chicago. My oldest brother was in Chicago.
Right.
So I was like, fine, I'll go there. I just wanted to go to a big city. I was like typical, like small town girl, get me to a big city.
Yeah, determined.
Yes, went there with my boyfriend in tow. In the first week of school, there was no classes. It was just like
orientation
meet
week.
and greet,
Yeah.
orientation, and then some fun parties.
Your boyfriend did not move to Chicago.
No, he was in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And we were at a party.
Mm-hmm.
Nico was there. Nico actually lived 5 floors above me. We both lived in the 2 East 8th kind of dorm city building.
But we went to an apartment party like blocks away. It wasn't in the building.
It was on Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was probably 20, 30 people, just kids getting drunk, having a good time. There was a beer tong. There was a beer tong table, a beer pong table set up. And we started playing beer pong. And it was me and our friend Olivier against you and Natalie. Yeah.
And what I remember about that party is that all of the girls were very enamored with you. And I was not.
No.
I mean, I was just like, hey.
But that's like a part of your personality traits. Like if everyone is into something, you will make the decision to not be into it.
Hey, got to be different.
Yeah.
You're the same way.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
But I was like, the stoned guy with the flat brim hat and the hood?
Yeah, that
was fully you. Flat brim hats, hood.
I was really into the
stoner.
like underground hip hop scene in Chicago at the time. I was wearing a lot of LRG. Like I was stoned all the time, wearing lots of flat brims. Yeah. I was so cool.
You were pretty cool. Anyway, everyone was really into you. What I don't really know is how we then connected post that party. You were into me,
Well,
right?
no, I know exactly what happened. Yeah,
Oh.
I was into you immediately. I was like, you reminded me of someone who I like had a relationship with in the past, not like a romantic relationship with, but somebody that I was like always like kind of in love with. You sort of reminded me of her. And we started playing beer pong. Olivia and I won. You were trying to set me up with Natalie at the party, right? You were like playing fucking wingman at the party, right? And I just like wasn't into it, right? And you like immediately let me know that you were unavailable, which was like ding, 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 she's the one in my head. Whatever. We exchanged phone numbers. We started texting. I took you to Urban Outfitters. Like 2 days later, we were going to go shopping and we walked to Urban Outfitters from our apartment and we just started becoming friends. Like we just started hanging out from there. I had an apartment to myself. I had it all set up. Like I had this trunk in my closet in that apartment that had like a dozen bottles of $2 Chuck and a bong.
I mean, Nico was and still is, just unlike anyone I've ever met. I was so fascinated with you and I just like wanted to be in your space. Your whole apartment smelled like Nag Champa and like it was decorated and it was done. And I remember you had these huge wooden bowls and you would like make these gorgeous salads and eat them with chopsticks. And like, I'm from the Midwest. So like, I'm from a tiny little town and I hadn't seen anybody eating with chopsticks. I don't think ever. and the food, it was just so different
Yeah.
and really, really fascinating for me. And I just remember like wanting to go and be in your space. But yeah, I wanted to like be around you.
And similarly, you were very different from anyone that I had ever met before. I mean, one of the first conversations we had, we talked a lot about religion early on. You were raised really religiously, in independent Baptist church, and I had never really spent time with people that were raised that religiously. Everyone that I grew up with was Jewish. I spent more time in temples than I did in any church, like historically.
You were not raised religiously at all.
No, at all. I mean, historically, my people are Catholic, but like we never went to church growing up at all. And one of the first conversations we had was about evolution. And you were like, no, like evolution isn't real. Like you gave me the creationism story, like pretty hardcore. And not in the sense where like I was trying to challenge it. I was just so curious.
Yeah.
To know more about how you were raised and the person that you were.
Well, I was at a time in my life where I wasn't involved in the church in the same way I had been raised, but I hadn't assessed and really like contemplated things that I was taught or told or like a lot of the damage that came from the church, there was a very loaded story there. And so what happened when I met you is you were the first person that was like, oh, why do you believe that? Why do you think that way? Why? Why? And I was like, I have no fucking clue. This is just what I've been told,
Right.
And so, and you gave me books to read. Like you started challenging me in ways that no one had ever done before. And I was also at that like 20-year-old prime spot where you start to like uncover who you really are and who you want to be and what your identity is and, all of those things in an art school setting. Like,
right. Yeah.
You were the thing that I needed, which is why I think our relationship started out so powerfully.
Powerfully.
Powerfully. Why can't I say that word? Powerfully.
Yeah.
There it is. Because of this challenge that we had back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was very clear that there was attraction for one another.
Yeah, immediately.
I had a boyfriend.
You had a boyfriend, yeah. It took a second for you, but like, we had these wine and weed nights that we like to call them, where we would just like spend time getting stoned, getting a little bit drunk, and having these like,
Nico opens the trunk in his apartment one day, and it is stacked Oh, you already said this.
Yeah.
It is stacked with like 2 bug chuck. I mean, wine filled to the brim.
Yeah.
And you're 18 years old.
And just like ripping
Your
this
mom had
bong.
stacked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God bless that woman. And we, we're having these intense conversations. And there was this one night, we call it the wine and weed night, where like we got so close to kissing. Like I can just like picture, I can feel it perfectly. Like
Me
our faces were just like
too.
getting so close to each other. We're having this like beautiful, elaborate conversations. But we couldn't because you had a boyfriend.
Well, and then I'd be like, I
gotta
have to go.
Yeah. You like stormed out of the room one night. And the next night, you went to a party like on the south side of Chicago.
Well, I broke up with my boyfriend.
No.
I never did anything with you without breaking up with my boyfriend. Because
okay.
it was like a technicality of cheating. You know what I mean? I went as far as I could, and then I was like, okay, I got to break up with them. Then I went out to a party, got drunk, and then
at like 2:00 in the morning, it's thunderstorming outside. Okay, and I think I was on the 18th floor, and banging on the fucking door. Like I was convinced I was getting broken into. There was like somebody that was at the door trying to kill me. I go and I open the door and you had gotten a beer spilled on you that night. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it reeked.
Reeked of beer. And I mean, it was like straight out of a fucking movie. You like come into the room, you like storm in, you like push me up against the wall. We start making out. And I was like, I was like, game on. And we had
We had sex to Dave Matthews in a lightning storm. There was floor-to-ceiling windows in a high-rise in this apartment. I mean, it was pretty magical.
It was epic. It was epic. Yeah, it was the first time we had sex. Dave Matthews playing. Storm was outside. It was just intense. It was fucking awesome. You slept over. I mean, it was already late. Yeah. And you had class in the morning. And you went to class in the morning. And I remember I just texted you, baby, baby, baby.
Baby, baby, babies.
Baby, baby,
really
baby.
did start so early on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, and then we got married 20 years later. And so we decided we were going to start dating for real. Like,
we were dating.
Yeah, we were going to be boyfriend, girlfriend. And really, that was like the only time in our relationship in 20 years.
Truly.
Where we were boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah. Because we did it, and then we both immediately were like, this is not for us. It was probably about 2 weeks. I can remember, I mean, I'm sure you had your own, I know you had your own thoughts and feelings, but I can remember being with you at some point just being like, oh my gosh, like I can't stand him. I was trying to force something that was never going to be part of our relationship.
Well, I had a best friend at the time too that
was annoying.
He was a year younger, so he was still in school, but he would come up and spend the weekends. Shut up. And whatever. His story was very much so like, you can't be locked down, bro. Like, you're in college. Like, you got to do the thing.
Really?
Yeah, totally. So, like, painted this picture where, like, I needed to keep my options open, so to speak. And I just, like it just didn't work. We just, like, too hot, too heavy, too fast. And I remember calling him and being like, yeah, babe, like, I don't think we can do this anymore.
Yeah. Nico calls me to give me the breakup talk. And in my head, I was like, he's not breaking up with me. I'm breaking up with him. I was like, good, fine, good riddance. One of the ways that like I describe our relationship, especially early on, is we both played cat.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a cat and mouse. Like we both needed to play cat.
Yeah.
So then there was this period of time where we didn't talk. We didn't want to see each other. We had all these mutual friends swirling around, but it was like, no, we're not going to be in the same room. Like, ooh, don't like each other.
Right.
But good old Ronnie Sage.
Good old Ronnie Sage. God bless
Still
you.
a friend to our
Yeah,
this day.
We love you, Ronnie. No, he would throw these parties, right? And he was like throwing this big party where he would like brand the parties, and it was the winter
Soulstorm all white party.
Soulstorm winter all white party.
I was on the business team. It was basically like him, another guy, and me deciding that we were going to throw these big college underage parties that were going to be super chic.
These like warehouse parties, yeah. And so he was putting together like some flyers for the party, and he needed models for this flyer. And he was like, well, fucking Bethany and Nico, of course. And we hadn't seen each other for a couple weeks. We hadn't talked to each other. Well, I come down to some apartment where there was like a scrim set up, a photo shoot set up.
It was in my apartment. In the kitchen, we set up a sheet to create a pretend, green screen, basically.
Yeah.
And the shot
was us
We
kissing.
have to put a picture
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the Patreon.
for sure,
We'll find it.
We
Okay.
will.
The shot was supposed to be Nico and I almost kissing. And it was going to be made to look like we were like frozen and icy with like a bottle falling out. I mean, it is the most 2006 shit
Ridiculous.
you've ever
I can just
seen.
like hear Pitbull playing.
Why does this truly feel like yesterday? Like
Yeah.
it's such a memory for me. So it had to be this almost kissing shot.
Mm.
It was the hottest photo shoot I've ever done.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, like it was good.
It was electric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then after that, we became fuck buddies.
Yeah, we just started having sex all the time. Yeah, we weren't really like hanging out. It was just like sex. Like you would come over. I moved out of that building. Basically, like one night, it was like a Saturday night, some kid knocks on my door and he was like, "Hey, I'm your new roommate." And I'd been living alone for a month. But the college figured out that like there was a bed to fill in the dorm. And I was like, fuck this. I am not staying here. Like, my mom like packed me up and got me an apartment solo on the Gold Coast.
I truly remember like this pretentious asshole like can't even have I had 3 roommates and mine.
It was not for me.
Not for you.
So I got
Makes sense now.
I got the studio apartment on the Gold Coast, but the closet was really big. It was like this big walk-in closet. And I put
Closet was the size of a queen size bed.
Yeah, it was exactly the size of a queen size bed. So I put a bed in the closet, no windows, obviously. It was just this like little nook. And we just started having a bunch of sex in that little closet. It's funny that our relationship started
in the closet. One of the nights that we realized that there was a shift is I ran into you in one of the school buildings.
It was in the elevator.
Yeah, and you were like,
"Wanna
hey,
come over tonight?
You want to come over tonight?" I said, I go, I mean, I'm on my period, which at that time meant we weren't going to be having sex. And you were like, that's okay. You can still come over.
Just come over. We'll hang out.
And that was, it was a shift.
It was a huge shift. Yeah.
And then the next shift was spring break.
Mexico.
When you were like, let's go on a trip together.
Yeah. Well, I had never been on a trip with just like another person like that. Like it was like our first adult move. Definitely for me.
You were still 18.
I was
for
still
me
18,
too. Yeah.
But my mom was like, listen, if you're having fun, like, why don't you guys go to Mexico? I was like, fuck it, let's do it. God bless Annie.
So I called my mom and said, hey, there's this big group of people that wants to go on this spring break trip. We're so lucky to be before really the time of like social media and access. And it wasn't like there was going to be a ton of pictures. Like we had a little disposable camera, but like that lie was so much easier to get by with then.
You couldn't do that now.
No.
Yeah.
And just me and you went to Mexico.
Mm-hmm. We went to Ixtapa, Mexico. We stayed at an all-inclusive resort and had a fucking blast.
We did.
And
are we going to tell them?
We had our first
4-ish
group situation. Yeah, we met this like older French couple that we were both kind of into, this idea of it. And whatever, we got fucking wasted. We got hammered. We were drinking tons of tequila. We wound up smoking a joint on the beach. We like all went back to a room together and started hooking up. And it was very clear that like I was not into the situation. It just like
I didn't know that was clear. I thought you were hooking up with this girl, and then I was like, well, I gotta look cool and hook up with the guy.
Right, yeah.
Didn't have sex with them though. You still think I did, but I didn't.
Whatever. We weren't having sex with them. Fine. But like it just like didn't work. Like, I was drunk. I wasn't into it. Things weren't working. They left. And we woke up the next morning at an all-inclusive resort. We knew we were going to continue to run into them, and it was like awkward. But it really was our first like exposure to something more than just a monogamous relationship. Yeah.
And you really had a hard time the next day. You did not want to go out of the room.
I was so embarrassed about the whole thing. I just felt yucky, you know?
And we didn't have like tons of communication set up at that time. And I was like, oh, I think I fucked this up. And I remember kind of going out of the room without you. And I don't know if we like really hashed anything out.
Yeah. And we were sitting on the roof smoking a joint of that hotel like a couple days later. And that event really like forced us to like get closer quick, you know? And I remember I looked at you, I said, you know, I love you, right? That was like our first time we like said anything like that, you know?
We weren't sitting on the roof though.
No?
No, I think we were, whatever, it doesn't matter. I think we were on like pool lounge chairs, is my recollection.
It's funny how those stories get
I know, right?
shifted over the years.
Totally.
Yeah.
But but you did definitely say like, well, I love you, right? And I was like, yeah, I love you too.
Yeah.
And that was her first I love yous, was
Yeah.
on that trip.
Mm-hmm.
And
we got back to Chicago. Like, things were great. Like, we weren't this, like, typical boyfriend-girlfriend relationship still. Like, we got very close very fast. It was the end of my freshman year.
wait, something like about our dynamic from so early on, which is just telling us. I remember being in a room with you, like at a party, on opposite sides of the room. You know, like we weren't talking or anything, and people would be like, "So you two are together?"
Right.
Like it would, like there was just annoying. Like there was just like a magnetic thing that was there between us very early on that other people could see.
Yeah.
It was evident and obvious. The next big thing that happened is you moved to Los Angeles.
No, I moved into your apartment. Really. We
but
moved
I'm
in
thinking,
together.
Yeah.
Whatever. We lived together for a summer. I made the decision that I was leaving Chicago. I was going to go to LA. I had this whole plan of going to business school in LA. Like, I wanted to get into sustainable architecture and development. I had this big master plan. It was really the only time in my life that I stopped acting, was that year at Columbia College. I grew up on stage in Chicago. I knew it was what I was going to do forever. I was always looking for a means to get to LA to do the thing. So I made the decision to move to LA. I spent the summer in the city going to summer school. I went to a fashion class in Chicago, and I moved in with you, and we just had this glorious summer. Like that summer was just really such a beautiful time. Yeah. But yeah, I was leaving. We had an expiration date, there was an end to what was happening.
Yeah, but once again, both of us playing cat, I can't remember it being we've never, even in the times that we've, quote, broke up, there's never been a breakup talk.
Right.
It was just no, I'm going here. And we kind of knew it. And none of us wanted to, we didn't want to admit the feelings surrounding it. Or I don't know. It was a bit unspoken.
Right. I kept moving around. And that's a common theme in the 20 years of us knowing each other. That I kept shifting, right? Just because of my life and my job and where I was going. And I moved to LA. Yeah. And I got an apartment solo down in Playa del Rey in LA. I was going to school for a little bit at Loyola Marymount. I dropped out of school pretty quickly. I moved in. I started working at this raw food restaurant. I met this girl. I moved in with her, got out of my apartment. We started this pretty intense relationship.
But I didn't know about that.
But it wasn't a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship either. We were best friends and whatever. It was a complicated relationship. But you didn't know exactly what was going on.
Well, what happened is I slept with
one of our best
Nico's
friends.
frenemy.
Yeah.
Your frenemy in Chicago.
Yeah.
Who had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
He cheated on his girlfriend with me. Him and I were BFFs, but it was definitely Nico's. I don't know another way to describe it except a frenemy.
Yeah.
He ended up telling his girlfriend. His girlfriend called Nico.
Yeah.
Who then called me. And
we weren't not in touch either, though.
No, yeah.
We were talking all the time.
No, for sure. We were talking and you called me very upset and it was a thing. And I remember crying on my kitchen floor, sitting against the wall, and you were so mad, and it was just this big thing. And then within 24 hours, and I want to say even way less, you called me back and you were listen, I'm sorry.
For getting mad, yeah.
For getting mad. It is what it is. And
I'm here,
also,
you're there. Yeah.
I've been living with someone else. That was the first time that I knew that you were living with someone else. And it was this really interesting moment for us where it was kind of I'm not actually mad about that. You weren't actually mad about what I did. I wasn't actually mad about what you did.
We were supposed to be mad, right? And we acted on those feelings.
Yes.
But deep down, we both knew that we were actually okay with the other person having space and freedom and autonomy and just
Right. It was kind of I'm in Chicago, I'm doing my thing. You're there, you're going to do your thing.
I love you,
I
do your
love
thing.
you, I care about you.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, it was just, I don't know, it was just okay.
It was okay, yeah.
And all of these little instances, I think, are really telling about who we are today. And these all built the foundation.
Dynamics that we've explored over the years too.
That are so confusing for other people have actually been a very long time coming in our relationship.
Right. Yeah. So then cut to the end of that school year. That was your senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, fuck it, move to LA. Why don't you come?
And I did.
And you did.
And we moved in together.
We moved in together, yeah. And it wasn't this conversation that we had of okay, we're boyfriend, girlfriend, let's get a spot together, let's do this for real. It was just hey, I need to get out of my current situation. You need to come to LA. It makes sense for us to live together. Let's get an apartment and let's see how it goes.
You need a burp?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Because
remember, I had been trying to get to Los Angeles. My mom was
since you
finally
were
16
years old.
Can't tell you no anymore.
Right, yeah. And we got this dope apartment in downtown Hollywood on Las Palmas.
We were raw foodists.
Yeah.
We were
extreme.
We were dressing. Remember how we were dressing very everything was 1920s?
Mm-hmm.
I always wore little fascinator hats with feathers and.
We've always done different versions of ourselves,
Yes.
both physically and emotionally. But we went through these different eras, right? Of how we would dress and what we were doing with our lives and the friends that we hung out with. It was just always a different thing. And we always took it to the fucking,
next level.
All the way to the end.
Full of shift.
Yeah, totally.
So we were in Los Angeles together. I'm how do we not get into the weeds when telling all this story? Because I don't even want to get into the weeds. I
started working. I started auditioning, right? I dropped out of school. I started auditioning pretty quickly. I had an agency in Chicago that hooked me up with a sister agency in LA. I started auditioning, and my professional life started moving very fast. I started testing for jobs, which means when you're auditioning, there comes a point where it's down to you and a few other people, and the network tests you, and there's camera tests, whatever. I started testing for these bigger, high-profile jobs, and I was up for The Beautiful Life on the CW, which was Ashton Kutcher's show at the time. It was a big deal. Everyone was up for this job, and I got it. It was my first series regular job, and I had to move to New York in a month.
Yeah.
Right? We're shooting the pilot. Oh yeah. We shot the pilot in Montreal, so we were still living together. I went up and I shot the pilot in Montreal, and I kind of fell.
You left.
I left, yeah.
And I remember, I was fresh out of college, trying. Anyone fresh out of college, that first year sucks. You're just trying to figure it out. I was working at a PR firm, doing something on paper that I thought sounded right, hated it, wanted to quit, was maybe I should become a stripper for a little bit. Just had no idea what I wanted to do, broke as fuck.
You started teaching workout classes.
I don't even know that I had that job yet.
No, you did. In Hollywood.
No.
For sure. You started teaching those workout classes. Yeah, when we were living together, 100%. My brother also lived with us for a little bit. We had my best friend Eric live for us a little bit. Yeah.
You booked this job.
Yeah.
And I remember when you left and coming home and was hoping there would be a note, and there was no note. And I just knew that you were gone. And I just knew that was it. And I was sad, but I didn't want to feel the sad.
Right.
So I started sleeping with your best friend.
It's a common theme in our relationship.
Another frenemy.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
That was a terrible, toxic relationship for a bit. But this period of time was...
There's something that happens when you get introduced to Hollywood too. That is also just it's like a drug, It's just this was my first step into a whole new world. And I'm surrounded by celebrities and high-profile people and all of this money. And I started making a bunch of money. And I just kind of got fucking swept up.
You started dating a co-star.
Yeah.
I found out about that just through seeing it online.
Yeah, paparazzi.
Yeah, paparazzi pictures.
I was really partying all the time.
Right.
Life was just moving very fast, very quick. And then I moved to New York. And we had to get rid of our apartment in Hollywood, right? And I was gone when that happened. And remember my mom came and had to drop something off to you and didn't come up to see you or something. And it was just this is done.
Yeah.
Without us ever having the conversation.
Right.
And from that point, for the next 2 years, was the longest we didn't really communicate with each other. There was like a hard break at that point.
I know that there was, so then I was in Long Beach. I ended up in a really, really bad situation. Like toxic work life, addicted to unprescribed meds, eating disorder at the worst that it's been, and a relationship that was bordering on abusive in many different ways.
Yeah.
I had to get out. But I was really good at what I was doing, which was teaching these classes and running a studio.
Yeah.
Someone was opening a studio in Texas. I had background, and they said, come with me. And it was like my escape.
Yeah.
We saw each other a few times within there. When we would see each other, we would sleep together.
I had issues with the relationship that I was in.
Yeah.
It was also like a toxic environment in totally different ways, but I was partying too much. There was like lots of drugs, lots of alcohol. Like in these like moments of either one of us needing help, we were always a phone call away.
Yeah. We would call each other, the deep hangover when you're looking at the sun at 6 a.m. and we would connect back with each other and then we would leave and that was it, you know? The longest time that we actually did not talk was 6 months.
Right.
And I remember because it was a really hard time for me.
Yeah.
And I always felt with you, like I can remember being in the dorms in Columbia, smoking a cigarette in the stairwell with, my roommate and being like, I don't know what it is about this guy and I'm not really this person, but like I am going to marry you, and I'm going to have kids with you.
Yeah.
Like
we talked about kids since like the first couple weeks.
Early on. Yeah. It was such a thing for us, which is so funny. So I moved to Dallas. This was during the time that we were the least connected. And it was also during the time that we started to explore our queer selves the most. Like
me first.
Yeah. Mine was happening, but like I didn't really want to call it what it was. Like I remember I met this girl at this Lady Gaga concert that I was like so enamored with. And then there was, somebody else that I kind of hooked up with. And Dallas was a lot of like drinking to not feel the feels and hooking up with people. That's what it was for me.
And I've always like been in relationships with people. Like I'm definitely like just jumping from intense relationships to intense relationships.
You love an intense relationship.
I love an intense relationship, yeah.
Not me.
I started dating this boy, like for the first time in my life, I was really like uncomfortable with it. Like I was definitely like very unsure of who I was. Like I didn't tell anybody in my life. I was drinking too much. Like it was just this like party-based relationship. He wound up like moving in with me. My parents moved to LA. They didn't know that it was happening. We all were spending a bunch of time together. It was just a very closeted fucking period of my life. And I started coming to Dallas a bunch as a way to like go.
Yeah, you would tell me some
I
of
would
it,
tell
though.
you. Yeah, I would tell you. But there were a lot of people in my life had no idea what was actually happening. But there were these times where like, I need to fucking escape this environment that I'm in right now. Babe, can I come to Dallas? And I started coming.
Well, the first time, we hadn't talked to each other in 6 months.
Yeah.
And I had gone out this night with this guy that I was seeing.
Right.
And I had I was an ambassador for, I was an ambassador for Lululemon.
Yeah.
And I had my big photo shoot for them, the photos that they put on the wall. I had said that I was going to go out the night before for a drink. A drink turned into multiples. I ended up doing cocaine all night and didn't go to bed and was up to see the sunrise when I had to start getting ready for my photo shoot. Ugh. And I was sitting in a park watching the sunrise and I was like, I gotta call Nico. But we hadn't talked in 6 months. I called you and you were in the same boat.
Yeah.
You had been out all night partying and you were still up. And you were like, I think I'm gonna come there.
Yeah.
And you came.
Yeah.
And that was like the first time we had seen each other.
It was
in a
the
long
beginning
time.
of the rest of our story.
It was.
Yeah.
Because shortly after that, this same guy. Are we telling this story here too?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's like the
part
big
of our
part
story.
of us,
Yeah.
huh? Yeah. I got pregnant.
Yeah.
And I knew right away that it was this guy's. I mean, I had sex with him. My method was always pull-out method. I mean, I was never in birth control.
Yeah, same.
I knew one night he had came inside me. I went and got a plan B. I told him, hey, you can't do that.
Mhm.
Then
It was also not long after I had told you about a pregnancy that I had experienced, and we had a medicated abortion at home. Like I was like just kind of coming out of this experience in my own life. You called me. This had just happened to you.
right.
And I was like, I'm coming.
Well, hang on. First, you came once. You visited once.
Yeah.
That was before I got pregnant.
Right.
You left. Then I had, after already having this conversation with this guy, I went over to his house one morning, had morning sex with him that lasted all of 30 seconds. Didn't even know he came. Like, no idea. I just said, you cannot come inside me. He did. And that was when I got pregnant.
Yeah.
And I was so like, are you kidding me? You were my first call. And there was no judgment. There was no anything. You were just like, I'm coming and I'm going to support you through this.
Yeah.
Then you came to see me for the second time in Dallas.
Mhm.
And that was when I took the abortion pill. And you saw me through that, which was kind of like the first birth, babe.
Yeah,
You know,
totally,
like
totally.
it was really intense for me.
Yeah.
I was throwing up.
Yeah, you were. Wow.
Oh, that's funny to think about
Yeah.
after the last podcast that we just
Yeah.
talked about.
Mhm.
Something that
Something majorly shifted in our lives
Yes.
after that. Yeah.
because it was like we weren't even together
Yeah.
still. We were not considered together in
No.
any way,
I
shape,
think we
or
were
form.
sleeping together when I would come to Dallas.
Sure, but
Yeah.
like we'd always been sleeping together,
Yeah.
you know? But like even when you were coming to Dallas in between, like there was somebody else who I was seeing, you
Me
know?
too, yeah.
Right. And it was this moment where it was like, we're family.
Yeah, we're family.
Where it's like
We're emergency contacts. That was
Yes.
kind of the beginning of that. Yeah.
Yes. Like it's not us dating. It doesn't need to be boyfriend and girlfriend. Like you're my fucking family.
the most
and
important
you're
person in my
call.
life,
Yeah. And
yes.
it doesn't matter what it is. Like we're gonna drop everything to
Yeah.
support each other.
And we gave each other space to explore every other part of ourselves, you
Right.
know?
Right. I think about the experience of that abortion often and conversations about abortion and, you know, whatever, God's plan. I think about my religious background. And one of the things that I always think about is like that baby did have a purpose.
Yeah.
The purpose was to bring me to you,
To bring us
my
closer.
future
Yeah.
husband.
Yeah.
And without that experience, like we don't have Kilmer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I like that baby was a plan and a purpose. And it was the right thing to do. And I so believe that with all my heart. It gave me my children
Mhm.
that I have today, one in my belly and one at home, you know, and you. Without getting too much into that, but that's my take on that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. We're gonna kind of speed through the next little bit of the story because we're at 45
I
minutes
could just
right now.
talk to you forever,
I
babe.
know.
It's so
Well,
sweet.
That's not even like half of our story, but
I
like,
told you it was going to be hard to get through
Yeah,
20 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so we would go to
So,
New York.
Yeah, basically, I book a job in New York, another job in New York. It was the following. I got an apartment in Brooklyn, and you were looking for an out of Texas, right? You were like,
You were always my
you
out,
had
baby.
You had fucked some shit up in Texas. You needed an out. And I said,
Why did I
come.
fuck up?
I mean, not, but
Whatever.
like,
It was time to go.
you needed to leave. And I said, come to New York. Let's go. Let's do this again.
You said come, but so you know I still want to be able to explore this part of
Dating
my
other people. Yeah. Specifically
identity.
men. Dating
Yeah.
men. Yeah.
And I said, okay,
Great. Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah. And you moved in. And that was it 1 year that we were in that apartment?
It wasn't even a year, babe, but it was debauchery at its
Fuck.
finest.
I mean, the purest form of debauchery, that period of time of us living in Brooklyn
This is in your final years before getting sober.
Yeah, it was just the darkest hour. I filmed this movie called Hunter and Game where I was playing a drug addict DJ, and I just fucking took it to the 9th degree. I was just hanging out with people that we shouldn't have been hanging out with, just sticking ecstasy up our asses, and just doing wild shit as kids that age are supposed to do.
That
you know?
you would drink, the more I would drink. The more you would go further, I would go further, just to not have to really face reality.
Right.
I think,
Mm-hmm.
And it was
it was a lot.
Intense.
It was a lot. Yeah. My character was killed on that show. It's funny, the character that I was playing on that show kind of had double lives. He had a boyfriend, he had a girlfriend. There was a mirror of what was happening in my own life because I was still kind of hanging out with the guy in LA. And the character dies, and I had to move back to LA. I had to go get another job. It was at a point in Hollywood where you had to live in LA to audition. And so we had to get rid of our apartment in Brooklyn. We had dogs. We had 3 dogs at that point. You had gotten a dog while you were in Texas. I had 2 dogs. And this was kind of okay, I'm moving back to LA. You were ready. We started having sex with groups of people too while we were in Brooklyn. I think that's important to know. But it was an important part of our story where we were exploring our own sexualities together.
Yes. And when you moved to LA, it was different than when you had moved to New York. Because this move to Los Angeles, I think, was nicer, it was very much I'm going to do my thing and you're going to do your thing and I love you and we're best friends.
Right.
And I started to exclusively date women in New York. Time. During that time, I got an adorable studio apartment in the East Village that I lived in alone. And you were doing your thing in Los Angeles, later moved back to New York. But that period there, babe, that was our best friends. 4 years.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
4 years?
It was the longest we didn't sleep together, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were besties.
Yeah, best friends. Talk to each other every day. Yeah.
All the time, told about who we were dating.
Yeah.
Our partners always knew the other person.
Which was always confusing for the other partners in our lives. Because still, we were each other's emergency contact no matter what. Anything happened, drop of a dime, we were in each other's lives.
And like I said before, kind of that energy where Nico and I would be in the same room and at a party and people would be like, what's going on with you two?
Exactly.
I think our other partners could always kind of feel some sort of sense of that,
right?
And we didn't know what to name it. We didn't know what to call it. We didn't know how to describe it. It was just there.
Because we didn't have the language for it. Right. Yeah. And long story short, I wind up booking another job in New York. I booked Younger. I come back to New York. The first season of Younger was the last year of me drinking. It was the worst that I had experienced to the point I started drinking alone heavily. I was just I had experienced rock bottom. I decided I was going to get sober. And I remember I showed up at your apartment the day that I said, this was it, I'm getting sober. I crawled into bed. I flew into New York from LA with an empty suitcase that had a sock in it. I lost my phone. I lost my wallet. I crawled into your bed. And I was like, I have to get sober. And I haven't had a sip of alcohol since. Mm-hmm. And you were living with your girlfriend at the time, right?
Yeah.
You had to go to work the next day. Your girlfriend and I
Actually, I left for Vegas to go work.
Oh,
and you
stayed.
And my partner at the time stayed in there and read the Miracle book.
Yeah, Book of Miracles.
And y'all did all kinds of sober work while I went and had a time in Vegas.
I got on a juice cleanse. It was the beginning of the ultimate shift in my life.
Yeah.
Was my sobriety, which we can do a whole other episode about sobriety and addiction. We'll probably do a whole fucking season on that. But it was when I started really taking my life more seriously, and my identity. It's when I really started to explore sexuality and gender. I started a podcast pretty quickly after that, where I was taking these conversations that I was having about love and identity and sexuality publicly. I took this education public. I learned so much so fast. I immediately started exploring my sexuality publicly, right? And from that, started to explore gender publicly. And it just like, it became this thing that was the driving force of how we were exploring our identities together simultaneously, like in tandem, in different versions of it, right? Best friends.
Yeah.
Best friends.
Yeah.
Weren't even sleeping together.
Yeah. And then actually our decision to get married, which we talked about some of this already in the first episode.
Yeah.
But, well, we came out of the jungle from this very intense experience that maybe we'll tell here at some point. Maybe we won't.
We will, for sure.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right. So when we tell that, but I'm not ready yet. We came out of this experience and you were like, so we're getting married, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, definitely. We had seen our lives past, present, and future together. Like there was just no question that we were, meant to have a family, meant to be all of these things. But a big part of the marriage for us was that we felt like maybe it would help alleviate confusion for our other partners. Because any time that we would have somebody that we would date, it would always end kind of like, well, what's going on with Bethany? Or what's going on with Nico? Or like, what is that?
Right.
So we thought it would really help kind of define and establish a little bit like
that we are each other's primary relationship,
Right.
but we have room for secondary and tertiary relationships, right? Like it would just like set boundaries. It was when we really started having poly conversations, both privately and publicly, like we kind of were like, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. We're letting the world know that, right? And we're going to get married because of it.
Yeah.
And
then COVID happened.
Yeah, I mean, truly.
And then we had a fertility journey,
Yeah. COVID really forced us to be monogamous, Like we never really made the decision like, okay, we got married now, we're going to stop sleeping with other people. Like we were forced to spend all of our time together. There was no travel. There was no other partners. Like it was for the first time in our life. Like we were living in a house. We were married. We started talking about having kids and we were only having sex with each other. Our sex changed, right? It became more of a chore than like pleasure. That's just like what happens when you're trying to get pregnant.
Well, yeah, sorry. Am I interrupting?
No.
Well, I mean, the burning question, the question that both of us get all the time that I've gotten 1,000,001 times in every Instagram comment is, are you guys still in an open relationship? Has that changed since becoming a parent? And my personal answer for that, well, one, we have not been sleeping with anyone else.
No.
I can't even imagine opening up space in my life to date right now. Like that feels like I can barely find time to do my skincare in the way that I want. I don't know. It just doesn't feel very attainable.
Yeah.
So in practice, no. But as far as the foundation of who we are,
it doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away. That always feels like an option.
Right.
It doesn't feel like suddenly it's not there, but it's not presenting itself to us in our life right now.
Currently, right now. And that's not to say it won't in the future. This is the most monogamous we've ever been. And there's no desire in me for more. I am more in love with you and our family than I've ever been in my entire life. Like you said about time, having toddlers, it's just, this is our unit. And I believe it. It means so much more to me than any other version of myself that I need to explore.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question point blank, are you still open? No. Right now, we're not. Today, in this room, us having this conversation, no. Our family is the most important thing to us. Is that to say that in the future, it could be different? Who knows?
Right. And not that somebody couldn't have their family be important to them and
still be open.
And
right.
still be open.
No. Yeah.
That's not
people
the
do
case.
it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's just not part of who we are right now.
Right.
Yeah. It's part of our story, right? It's
it exists within our foundation.
Right.
You know?
And it goes beyond physical relationships with other people. We've always, we may need to have a whole poly episode at some point, but we've always like stood by our ability to have an open relationship in the sense that like it was more than just having sex with people, right? Like it was never really about having sex with other people. Like that was part of it, but for us it was like being emotionally available to other people too. Like we've had all of these intense relationships in our lives with people that like were, you know, emotional first, right? And like what does that look like in the dynamic of a marriage? Like can I still have emotional and intimate relationships with other people without having sex? Like where is the line of it being cheating, you know? And I would say that our line has shifted over the years. It's blurry sometimes. And like communication is just like the one thing that needs to be ever present.
Right. Well, everything got more sound in our relationship when we were able to name it and communicate it. Because essentially over the years, and there's tons of stories we haven't told within this, but we would just cheat on each other and the other person wouldn't really be that mad.
Right.
But we were doing it in ways that like didn't feel good, you know? And once there was more language for it, or once we were able to identify it or put some names around it,
we did.
Then it was much easier to do that. And that was very helpful for us.
And we understand that we are very fucking confusing. Right? Like
so confusing.
No, for real. Like it's confusing for us too. Like it's so much of who we were. It's so much of our story, both privately and publicly. Look, we were on the cover of every fucking magazine saying, you know, Nico and Bethany are a queer polyamorous relationship. Like, yes.
People love the headline.
Yeah. People talked about us way more when we were that than we are now, right? It was like this salacious material. So yes, we understand that it's confusing for people who are like still following our story, that like all of a sudden we are the most fucking monogamous heteronormative relationship. Like the amount of like queer people and followers we've lost over the years just because visually from an optic standpoint, we are so far from where we were 5 years ago. We get that it's confusing, but like that is our shift. Yeah. It is only one of our shifts. And like I've said in the past, we have to allow permission for ourselves and for other people to grow and change, right? Like,
well, I mean, this is like this season of our life where this exists. You know, there will be other seasons that happen for us and it'll shift into something that, like, no doubt that that's going to happen in the future and whatever way it unfolds. I don't know the answer for that. It is so confusing from an outside perspective. And in ways it's confusing for us, maybe, but like, and also in ways I don't think it's confusing for us at all. Like, it just feels very much who we are, who it's always been. Like, it's you. You are in my phone as it's you, and you have been since Dallas. That's, I mean, I'm the, hey Siri, call it's you. Like, because it's you.
Family.
Yeah.
Yeah. We set that familial dynamic up very, very early on.
I feel so lucky.
Oh my God, we talk about it all the time.
Like, just to have the time underneath our belt with, you know, like with each other.
We chose love, you know? A long time ago, we chose love. I mean, we could have ended up in plenty of other relationships. I mean, there were plenty of other times where one of us almost got married, or we were talking about it, or we were talking about having kids with other people. And like we have had those conversations. But at the end of the day, it was always you and me first. And we put our love first. And if that's not the greatest foundation for a family, I don't know what is.
We really gave each other a lot of allowances to explore, to do all of the things, to go as far as we could, to push the boundary as much as possible. Like, if this is really what you need, then go do it.
Yeah.
And
even before we got married, you know, like.
I mean, a huge part of that was it. There was just so many allowances for each other. What do we say in the wedding article? Like, you know, we allowed each other to bend so much so that we wouldn't break.
Yeah. And there's something so beautiful about what COVID actually did for us too. Like, I like to think about how the universe works for us. And this is like a common theme that we'll have on this podcast, especially when we tell our ayahuasca story. And just like it seems like shit cracks open for us to get closer, you know? And like the world quite literally shut down in order for us to get closer and to be monogamous and to make a baby. Like if COVID didn't happen, would we be here having this conversation?
Yeah.
You know? Like it's fucking beautiful. There's been so much surrendering in our relationship, you know? Baby's kicking.
It's just been going crazy this whole time. It's so cute.
It's cool that our baby gets to hear all these conversations
Yeah.
too. Yeah. Okay, look, we hope that gave you some better context of our relationship and who we are and how we've gotten to this version of ourselves. There's clearly so much missing from that story. I mean, I even wrote a book about our story called Space Between, and there's so much missing in that book from our story. And I'm sure as we continue to go on, like more will be uncovered and we'll unpack more of who we are. But we hope that answers some questions. And if you have more, like send them to us. We're happy to answer more shit. This is Full of Shift. Go follow us on Instagram. Check out our Patreon, Full of Shift on Patreon. We're going to have some bonus episodes and more content over there. And you want to say anything else, my beautiful, lovely, pregnant wife?
No, I just love you. That was nice.
All right, well, let's talk for another 20 minutes, but it's only going to be accessible on our exclusive Patreon.
Ooh, I'm going to say cool things.
This is Full of Shift. Oh, yeah.
Bye.
Nico and Bethany are full of shift.
Nico and Bethany are full of shift.
Nico and Bethany are full of shift.
Nico and Bethany are full of shift. Nico and Bethany are full of shift.
Nico and Bethany are full of shift. Nico and Bethany are full of shift.